Hello, this is Todd Hubbs, agricultural economist at the University of Illinois. Today I'm talking about my April 8, 2019 weekly outlook, corn and soybean exports outlook. I thought since we've seen a lot of talk about the trade negotiations going on, I'd update where I see corn and soybean exports going under the current trade paradigm and what we might see and the kind of risks that are in place if we don't get a trade deal put through. So I'm going to discuss where we're at in total commitments and exports for corn and soybeans and how China is influencing those numbers. In this graph, I'm showing total commitments for corn through March 28th over the last two marketing years. And as you can see, our main export markets for corn, Mexico, Japan, South Korea, Colombia, they're back again this year as normal. We've seen corn exports quite strong in the first half of this marketing year, but they've weakened a little bit early in the year as compared to the torrid pace we set through 2018. And through April 4th, I've got corn exports at about 1.32 billion bushels, which means we need about another 1.06 billion bushels to hit the USDA's current estimate of 2.375 billion bushels this marketing year. That puts us in need of about 1.08 billion bushels for the remainder of this marketing year. Right now, outstanding sales of that 1.7 million bushels sit at about 518 million bushels, with our main export markets, Mexico, Japan, and South Korea, leading the way in those sales. There's an opportunity for sales growth in our main markets as we move through the rest of the year, but it's really starting to look like we're going to need some of those other markets to pick up buying to hit the current USDA projection, unless we see a really strong bump from places like Mexico, Japan, South Korea, Colombia, and Peru. I expect there to be some strong demand from those places, but we still need to see some of those other markets kick in. There's been a lot of talk about China buying grain. Right now, they've got about 18 million bushels of total commitments, and almost all of that sales for later in this marketing year. Without a trade deal, I doubt we see those bushels get sent. So all in all, we're sort of on track. I doubt USDA will lower corn export expectations in the WASDE report, but we're really not on pace unless we see a jump in demand in the later part of this marketing year. What you're seeing in this graph, soybean total commitments through March 28th for the last two marketing years. And I've done this before this year since we've had the trade fight going on. As you can see, China's reduction in soybean buying and exports has been quite dramatic this year, but we've picked up quite a few other markets as Brazil sent a bunch of soybeans to China. Right now we're projected to do 1.875 billion bushels this marketing year. I've got exports through April 4th at about 1.16 billion bushels, which puts us needing to do about 718 million bushels for the rest of the marketing year. One of the issues there is over the last four marketing years, we've only averaged about 386 million bushels from April through August, because as we see South America come in. Our largest year was last year, where we did 559 million bushels, and we picked up a lot of these other markets that Brazil normally sources. Outstanding sales through March 28th totaled 501 million bushels, and one of the danger points for us is about 60% of those sales constitute sales to China. And after this report came out, we saw another 60 million bushels bought by China on March 29th and April 1st. So a lot of the outstanding sales that make up these total commitments are to China. There's a lot of risk for soybean markets if that trade negotiation falls apart, because China has the majority of the buying right now. So as we're looking forward, we need that trade deal to go in place. On top of all that, African swine fever continues to spread throughout Southeast Asia. It's still bad in China. It's moved into Vietnam, and we could see a real dampening of soybean meal demand over the next 6 to 12 months. And in addition to that, Argentina and Brazil both look like having pretty large crops, and with their weak currencies and lower prices, export market competition is going to be stiff this year. Without that trade deal, it's going to be tough to hit the USDA's current projection. To give you an idea how China's been entering the corn and soybean export markets, I've plotted here soybean and corn total commitments through March 28th. On the left-hand axis, the orange one is soybean total commitments in millions of bushels, and on the right-hand axis is corn total commitments in millions of bushels. And as you can see, early in the marketing year, as the trade war sort of lingered on and deteriorated, total commitments went down as China pulled out of sales. And then when we got into December, it popped up. And then every time we've got some kind of negotiation, you see buying from China in soybeans to sort of like get this soybean number up as commitments and promises surrounding the trade negotiations went through. You can see for corn it was basically flat, and then we saw a little buy here a couple of weeks ago that put them up around 18 million bushels. So not a lot of corn so far set for China exports, but quite a few soybeans, and you can add another 60 million bushels onto that, and all that's hanging out over the soybean export market as we move through the rest of this marketing year. Overall, I don't expect the USDA to lower the export numbers for the WASDE report tomorrow for either corn and soybeans, but the risk is still out there for the rest of this marketing year if that trade deal doesn't materialize, particularly for soybeans. There's a lot of downside risk if we lose those export sales to China and they don't end up getting shipped. We also need the corn export pace to pick up through the latter part of this marketing year to hit the current USDA projection. Well, I'd like to thank you for your time. You can find my weekly outlook and daily analysis of issues related to Corn Belt farm economics at farm.daily.illinois.edu. I look forward to seeing you around the state of Illinois.